everybody, you're now listening to Cup of Queens with Paige and Saray, and as most of you know, we love to travel, so we're so excited to have Cheyenne, the owner and founder of All Travel Matters, to talk with us about her favorite travel hacks, her top destinations to visit, and what exactly she would do on a trip to Italy.
Cheyenne breaks down the do's and the don'ts of traveling and why having a travel agent in your corner is invaluable. Cheyenne gives advice on current COVID requirements for different highly desired vacation spots. If you are even slightly thinking about planning a vacay, this is the episode for you.
So grab your cup and enjoy.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. We're so excited to have you.
So excited.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, we are like travel junkies. Well, we try to be. Like we wish we could travel more. So when we saw your name come through, which it came through on our Queen nomination, we were like, yes, this is such a good idea. We love this.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I think I like that saying. Have you seen that like meme? I think it's I need 2 vacations a year every 6 months or something like that, and it's like I think that's everybody.
Let's make it happen. We need
Yeah.
that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. So tell us about you, your business, how it started, the whole 9 yards.
Well, how it started is kind of funny. I mean, like I had no idea that I would, if you would have asked me 10 years ago what I'd be doing with my life, first of all, I'd be living in like Minneapolis or Chicago, and I live in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't know if you can see that. No, it's way too bright. I married a rancher, and he basically told me when I met him that if this was going where he thought it was, that you're going to live in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, okay, I think I can do this. You know, I was raised in a very small town on a small farm. And so I just didn't think that that's what I wanted for myself. So I went to NDSU. We both went to NDSU, graduated, moved out to the middle of nowhere. And I kind of had like, the job was already lined up. I was going to be a loan tech at a bank. Everything was good. I loved my job for a while. And then after a couple of years in, it was just not really fulfilling me. I worked really long hours. It just wasn't a job that, I don't know, like the whole, if you do a job you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. I had no idea what that felt like because it got to the point where I just really hated it. And I started tossing around like ideas in my head, like, what am I good at? Like, what could I do? Because when you live in a community of 100 people on a ranch, there's not much to offer. You know, I can't just go do the things that I love. And so that's when I started brainstorming, like, okay, I knew that the goal was I wanted to have a family and I wanted to be able to do something that I could do from home while raising my kids. And so then I started like, what am I good at? I had friends trying to help me too, like, you're good at this, you're good at that, like maybe this, maybe that. And so a few things kind of came through, like maybe I'd be good at like being a virtual assistant or something like that, because I can be very organized in certain areas of my life, not so much in others. And so then actually, what kind of kickstarted the idea was that my sister-in-law is like a gypsy soul. Like she has traveled all over the world, loves it. She studied abroad in Spain in college. Like she's been to so many countries, and she invited me to go to Europe with her in 2015. And I was like, sweet, I've never been to Europe. Like this is going to be so fun. And she's a very like fly by the seat of your pants kind of planner. And I'm like my husband had a calendar, and every day had like where we were, the hotel name, contact information, like everything. And so it was just like and she just kind of looked at me like, are you kidding me? Like, what is wrong with you? And it was like fun for me. And most people would be stressed out about it. And I even have like friends that are trying to plan last minute trips where they're like, how do you do this for a living? Like, I am so stressed out. And I think it's just different because first of all, I'm removing, like, it's not me. So when I'm doing it for somebody else, maybe it's different because I have a different perspective. Then they're like freaking out about all the little things that I know will just fall into place from experience. But getting home from that trip, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I knew that realistically, like being that person that travels the world and gets paid to do it was not like realistic, especially with like marrying a rancher. What's he going to do? Sell the cows and come with me? Like, it's just not going to work. So that's when I started figuring out like, okay, I am organized. Like, I love to plan things. And like half of the fun of going on vacation for me is planning the trip. And so that is not usual for people. Like usually that's like the part that they hate. They just send me and just do everything for me. And so after that trip, we were in Italy and Greece for 2.5 weeks. And we had such a great time, and I got to see so many different parts of both of the countries. And part of what I love about my sister-in-law is that she's never the cookie cutter traveler. It's always off the beaten path. It's always like sometimes it's like, what are we doing? but it's like, now I look back and it's some of the best memories that we have. But in the moment you're like, I hate you right now. Like, this is awful. But it ended up being my favorite trip. Well, one of my favorite trips. I don't know. They're always favorites for different reasons, but it was like my big intro to Europe and my big intro to like a big international trip. And that was when I knew that I wanted to do travel. And so I just started digging into that. And my husband's aunt has been in the travel industry on the corporate side for basically her whole life. And so I kind of picked her brain, like, where do I start? Like, what do I do? And she's like, I know somebody that used to be part of this host agency. It's a good one. Like, maybe that's a good place to start, because it's just like, you start getting in that like Google hole, and it's just like, sometimes they seem too good to be true because they are, and I don't really know what I'm doing. So I kind of just was dabbling in it. And then my husband is very like opinionated and outspoken, and somebody got him really fired up about saying how like the American dream is dead. And we were kind of talking about like, do I quit my job? Do I sign up for this travel agency school? Like, what is the right financial decision for us? And he knew that I was miserable. Like, I'd come home from work and I would just like be in a miserable mood, and I would just follow through. It was like the same thing. I would get up, go to a job that I hate, come home, do your hour of whatever, and then get up and do it all over again. And I think he was sick of hearing about it, to be honest. So then he got all fired up, and he comes into the house. He's like, Cheyenne, the American dream is not dead, and you are going to live yours too. Like, go sign up for that school. And I was like, I'm going to do it right now before you change your mind, So I signed up, and I started kind of like just learning the ins and outs of like booking travel and just different things that you don't think about as a consumer sometimes. Like, maybe, New Zealand is great, but it's not summer over there when it's summer over here, things like that you don't always think about. And so I did that for probably 6 months or so, where I was working at the bank still. Actually, no, that's lied, a full year. I signed up at the beginning of the year in 2016. And by 2017, I had quit my job and I was working full-time from home. I was also like wanting to start a family, and that's a whole extra episode, because we had some troubles with that, and it was adding stress to our life, and I hated it. So he's like, just quit your job. So I did, and we haven't looked back, and I have 2 beautiful little babies now. So
oh my gosh, look at how things just like fall into place when you trust your gut and you follow your passion. That's incredible.
It is.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we are dying to pick your brain on everything, because like we said, we love to travel. Mm-hmm. So we want to know, it's great that we know how you got there, and that's so incredible, but why travel agents? I feel like that is something that even when I think about like planning a trip, I'm like, well, could I do it by myself? Like, I'm not super organized, but I feel like I could kind of get it. So what is kind of the reason that you feel like you find people seek you out to plan those trips?
Well, a big one is like, your time is money. And so a lot of time, like in this day and age, I'm not the only workaholic. So, people don't have time to do it. And it's like, sometimes it's those easy trips where you're like, oh, it's a quick weekend getaway, and I really want to be hands-on and picking out this perfect hotel for the 3 nights that we're gone. Like, that might be a different thing. But let's say that maybe you've never traveled out of the country before, or you have, but you've never traveled to that country, or maybe you're planning a wedding and the last thing you want to think about is what you're going to do for your honeymoon. So that's where I would come in to play. And it's like maybe giving you recommendations that you never thought of. Like, I just had a client that wanted to go to Bali really bad for their honeymoon, and it's closed unless like you want to quarantine for 8 days, I think right now it is. So not ideal. Like, let's fly all the way to Indonesia and then quarantine for 8 days. So they were trying to think like, well, what could we do that would feel like Bali without being Bali? And so we had to kind of, okay, first of all, what's open? Like, where can you go? What are the vaccination requirements? Like, do you need to be vaccinated, or is it okay if you're not? Do you need to take a COVID test? Like all of these different things that come into play, and like what could be a good option. So we came up with maybe Thailand or Costa Rica, which is very overlooked because it's like so close to home. But it had, when I started sending them pictures of like the resorts that I had in mind that were in the rainforest, they're like, this is what we pictured. And if we're going to get that in Costa Rica with a quick flight versus a 2-day flight, like maybe that's not off the table. So just, I guess that's kind of the big thing, and just taking the stress out. Like that is my dying desire, is to take the stress out of your travel experience, because it can be so stressful. And I've had people that have never used a travel agent before that are like, I didn't realize it could be like this. Like, I just assumed I would get off the plane and figure it out. But you had like a driver waiting for us with my name on a sign. And it was like, I never had to worry about like how I'm going to get to the next place. Like, it was all done. So those are the reasons why. Like I said, planning it yourself, like, can you go on Expedia and do it yourself? You sure can. But what happens if you get to Mexico and the borders close? Because that happened. I ran into some people on vacation where they said, we booked our trip with Costco and they closed the borders and Costco wouldn't answer the phone. And we didn't know how to get home.
Gosh.
That's
I will answer the phone.
That is absolutely terrifying. And by the way, I don't think I could ever plan a trip by myself. I know I couldn't. I 100% would need someone like you, because I just am like, what? It's not even worth the risk.
yeah, you know, it's
Well, and it's just nice to have somebody in your corner.
Yes.
and somebody that has your back. And I love that idea of, okay, you get off the plane, you know exactly where you're going, what you're doing, and then you can just enjoy
Relax,
it and have fun.
do what you did, what you sought out the trip for, is to relax and have fun. And then,
Or like when you do, go on a trip and God forbid you do run into a problem, like the last thing you want to do is be on hold with a company for 6 hours because you can't get through and you need to fix it. Like, you just say, hey, this happened and I'm on it. You go sit on the beach. By the time you get to your room, it'll be fixed.
yeah, that's amazing.
That is what I look to do. Like my sub agent, I actually hired a sub agent last year. And so she's just kind of getting into it's funny. Her husband's like, I think you picked the wrong time to join the travel world, because COVID had happened and we were spending all of our time like not booking travel. And because she just started, it was different for her, but I was spending all of my time canceling trips. And so that was fun. And he's like, I think you picked the wrong time. And I said, actually, you picked the perfect time, because now I have more time to help you. And it's the perfect time for you to take all the time that you need to learn all of the things that you need to know. And now that travel's back, she's been hitting the ground running and doing great. But she had that exact same thing. She had a client get to a resort and she hated it. She absolutely hated it and said, get me out of here now. And so by the time she woke up, Anne-Marie had everything ready to go and she was transferred to her new hotel and everything was great after that.
Dang,
That
quick turnaround.
Yeah, that sounds like miracle working.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do seem like that's what we do, is miracle work.
So I know you mentioned a little bit about COVID on different countries or different places that have been closed or maybe are still closed. So can you just give us a quick list of some of those destinations that people can't travel to right now?
So actually the list is getting smaller for the ones that you can't travel to, and it will vary a little bit based on your vaccination status. So it's really, and it's changing so quickly. So what I could tell you today might be wrong by the time that this is posted. It is just so fluid, which is another reason why you should use a travel agent, because a good travel agent will be on top of all of that and making sure that I've had clients that are reaching out like, oh my gosh, we leave in 2 weeks. Like, what do we do? And it's just like, your itinerary is coming. I have it all laid out, like every step of what kind of test you need, where, like some suggestions on where you can get your test, like all of those kinds of things. So it does change. And so it's really hard to say what are ones that you cannot go to right now, just because honestly, it could change, but like quarantine. So for instance, if you don't want to quarantine, Indonesia is like one that's on the list. Tahiti, if you don't have your vaccination, that's also one that you have to quarantine for. I think that one's at 5 days right now. Iceland is the same. It's open if you're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, you have to take a test before you go. When you land, quarantine for 5 days, and then test again. So there's just every country is kind of doing their own thing. But the good news is that Europe is like slowly opening more and more every day. So that's exciting because we've been missing them.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Totally.
I can't wait to plan a trip. I'll call you.
And what that is, I mean, aside from even, I mean, I think pre-COVID, it is so beneficial to have someone like you in their corner for planning any type of trip. But now that that has been added into the mix of things, like hugely important, I feel like, to just, I don't know, I would not personally want to have to keep tabs on all of that. So
right. And that, I guess, has been kind of the only blessing of a complete catastrophe from 2020 is that it has kind of reset the scene for travel agents, because like a lot of people, like you asked earlier, like why would I need a travel agent? I can do that myself. And as true as that may be, now it's kind of like, well, this is why, because what happens if this happens? I mean, now we know that when you're on vacation, the world could go into a global pandemic and then you're stuck, So, I don't know. It's even like with travel insurance, that's something that everybody kind of overlooked pre-COVID too. And now it's like, I couldn't even tell you the last time that, well, actually I could. I had one person this year say no to travel insurance and they could have used it. So, it's just, and that's always how it works. It's always how it works. But everybody wants travel insurance for obvious reasons. Like, what if I have to cancel my trip? I had a client that they were going to go to Mexico in April, and he had to cancel his trip 2 days before because his wife tested positive for COVID. So we got everything back except for the cost of his insurance because we had the right insurance. So it just, it really did give us a time to shine. Last year was rough, making basically nothing, because not only are you canceling all those trips, but some of it's even like the suppliers are commission recalling. So they're like grabbing money out of your bank account and it's like, it's already painful. Can you stop, please? And so now it's just giving us a reason to show like people why would you use me? Like, what can I do for you that you couldn't do yourself?
Yeah. And I think people are eager to get out there. I feel like people are making trips and booking things as soon as they can. But I love that you touched on, I mean, so many things that people overlook when booking, just even in, the state of the world right now. But what are one of the most common things that you hear of people doing as a mistake? And maybe it's not even COVID related. Maybe it's just something that constantly you hear, that if people plan their own trips, this happens, and where you could have been a help.
Well, and I think like travel insurance is a big one, because I don't even know, honestly, I've never booked a package on Expedia. So I'll be honest. So I don't even know if that's an option that they offer, or if they do, like what those details are. Like something that's very specific is every insurance agent, they're not apples to apples. Like every insurance policy is different. And so to know what is going to give you the best coverage is crucial. Like, is it going to cover pre-existing medical conditions? And it's not even just you. Like if you have a sick grandpa that could be traced back to a pre-existing medical condition and he passes away, they're not going to cover it if you have to cancel your trip for his funeral unless you have pre-existing medical conditions covered. So there's just a lot of those little things that people don't think about. Or like, I know this is a horrible story to even bring up, but my mom has a friend that went on vacation with her husband and some other couples, and he went to the gym and never came back because he had a heart attack. She didn't have travel insurance, and getting him home by herself while she was grieving, like that's what the insurance agency and the travel agent are for, is to help you with all of those things that you just like, you pray never happen. But when they do, you're like, thank the good Lord that I had somebody on my side.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is frightening.
I got really morbid there. I'm sorry.
Good to know. I mean, it's things that you don't, hear about all the time, or you don't even think about, because when you're planning a trip, it's all, excitement, but the reality is not everything works out the way you hope it does. So that is That's a great tip.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID has made things where if you are not a person that can be a little bit flexible, like it's just like sit it out and wait till it's done, because I am currently moving a client from Tahiti to probably Costa Rica because of the same thing. Like they're not vaccinated, they don't plan to be vaccinated, and they don't want to quarantine for 5 days of their honeymoon. Can't say I blame them. So, trying to shift that over without having a bunch of fees and things like that to make sure that they're, booked with the right tour operator and have the right insurance and things like that is all really important.
Yeah. Craziness.
Yeah. Dang. So talking a little bit about the insurance and now about more the finances. So how can people financially plan for the right vacation, and how can they get the best bang for their buck? Do you have any advice on that?
Well, for one thing, like as far as the best bang for your buck, destinations really do make a difference, and also time of the year. So shoulder seasons are always a great like money saver. Peak season is going to be different in every destination based on like the weather. So like New Zealand, you're not going to go to New Zealand or Australia in the winter most of the time because you want to enjoy all of those other things. So if you are okay with it being maybe fall or spring, like you look at those shoulder seasons, but they're going to be different months in New Zealand than they are in Italy. And they're going to be different months in Italy than they are in Hawaii, so it's different for every destination, but looking at those shoulder seasons is a big one. And then just kind of picking destinations based on what you want and what could work with your budget. Cause let's just like, we all know that like St. Lucia and Mexico are not created equally. So just being realistic with what you want. And like you said, with planning for it, just plan ahead. So don't, call me 3 months before your trip and say you want a great deal, because you're probably not going to get one. And especially with COVID, airfare last minute has been ridiculous. So you just need to plan ahead. And even if that's so far in advance that we can't even book air yet, that's okay. Like, let's just get an idea of what everything else is going to cost. Give us some wiggle room and get the ball rolling so that when it's time, like you've already know about what it's going to cost, give or take a few $100 probably. And then you can, everybody's a little bit different, but you can make payments if you don't want to do, like typically it's a deposit due right away, which would cover your airfare, your insurance, and like a small deposit for your land portion. And then the rest is not due until like 45 days before you leave. So that gives you a lot of time if you're planning a year in advance. And so I have clients that they send me, I have an invoicing system online that they basically just pop on. They tell me, they approve their credit card for this amount, and it sends it to my email, and I can just go and apply. They do it like every other week. We do $200, $500 every other week so that she can budget. And by the time her final payment date comes, she's going to be paid off. So it really just, everybody's different. And some people are like, I'm good with just waiting until the end. So just give me the deposit, give me the final. So, and that's how most people do it. At least my clients, most people do it that way, but there's options. Like we can always visit about those options.
That's so cool.
That's really
that is
neat.
such
I didn't
a
know that.
nice option.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to touch on these shoulder seasons, and it is so interesting. I want to go to Italy so bad, and I didn't realize how their seasons are a little bit different than ours as far as what parts of Italy I was wanting to go to. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear your opinions on the best places to travel for the 4 seasons. So, if you could pick one place to travel for summer, fall, winter, and spring, where would those be?
So for our seasons, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's summer here, where would be a good place to go?
Exactly.
So, Europe is a great place to go in the summer because their seasons are very similar to ours. But it just depends on if you want to do beach or if you're kind of wanting to explore a little bit more, because I have clients that are like, oh, let's go to Italy in March because it's shoulder season. And I'm like, that's great. But you also checked on your questionnaire that you wanted to do beach and water activities. The water's going to be real cold in March. And they're like, oh, I never thought of that, so maybe we'll go in July. So it really kind of depends on what you want to do specifically. And again, for instance, Iceland, I right now I have a trip planned to Iceland for a group in February. Probably would think that's a terrible time to go, but we want to go to see the Northern Lights. So you got to go during the Northern Lights season, not necessarily their summer season. So everything's a little bit different. But if I had to pick what everybody else wants to do, the perfect one. The States are so great and they have a lot to offer in the summer, but I do think that Europe is a great place to visit in the summer just because of the weather. And my husband and I went to Hawaii in November and it was awful. Like, I mean, I loved Hawaii, but it was like windy, cold, like pretty awful as far as the water goes. So we both were like, man, it'd be fun to come back during the summer, like when it's like perfect. And even if we would have pushed that out to like February, it probably would have been better, but we had some miles to burn and we had time. When you have a farmer rancher as a spouse, you can't get real picky with your dates. So you just kind of take what you can get and run with it. But that would probably be a few of my summer choices. For winter, another one, it's like, it depends on your interest. Like we took a winter trip to Switzerland and went snowboarding in the Alps.
Oh my gosh.
That was amazing. But not everybody likes to do that. However, even if you don't like to snowboard or ski, the Christmas markets are so fun in Europe. And so we went early December. I've always wanted to do the Christmas market. So we did the Christmas markets and we snowboarded on the Matterhorn. And it was like, it was a dream. It was so cool, but that's not for everybody. So that's part of what makes my job a little bit difficult, is that my ideal vacation is most likely not your ideal vacation. And so I really need you to paint me a picture of what you want so that I can help make that happen. But anyway, other ones, like I said before, Australia and New Zealand are opposite seasons for us. So if you're wanting to get away to somewhere warm in the winter, besides like obviously the Caribbean or Mexico, like those are great choices. You could always, fly way over there and do something like that too. So the options are endless. The world is big.
So travel as much as you can and see it all.
Exactly what you should take away from that.
Oh, yes.
And like being in North Dakota, like you both can understand that. It's like winter's not real fun here, let's be honest. But I mean, every season has its purpose and there's beauty in every season, depending on what you like to do or what you want to do. Like, I mean, summer is great, but it's like, it's really humid. And so maybe you would like the fall because of the colors and things like that. So it just and they speak to different people too. So it's just really, I don't know, it's really hard to pinpoint one destination for a season.
You've traveled to so many amazing places, but is there one destination that you've been to that you feel is underrated, that should be more publicized?
I mean, as far as the places that I have been, one thing that I feel like people don't really think about Costa Rica. I think whenever they're like, ooh, let's get away, let's go to Mexico, let's go to Jamaica, let's go to St. Lucia, like all of those little islands and stuff. And they're great. But I'm also like a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. And so I love that Costa Rica it offers something for everybody. And even if you're not the adrenaline junkie, like you can just go stay at the hot springs resort for like 4 days while everybody else is going like whitewater rafting and zip lining and whatever else they want to do. And the beauty about Costa Rica is that not only does it have the rainforest, but it also has the beaches. So I always recommend, if you have the time, to split your stay between both areas because they are quite a ways away. Instead of sucking up, 6 hours in a day to travel to and from one area or the other, you just like maybe stay at the hot springs for 4 days, do some excursions, and then you transfer over to the beach and finish off with like surfing and all of that kind of stuff, just lounging around. So I don't know. I think that's just one that whenever I recommend it, people are like, I never thought of that one. So I mean, maybe that's my underrated one because I loved it. My husband and I talk about, we're kind of the types of people that once you've been there, you like check it off the list and go somewhere else. But we're like, man, let's go back to Costa Rica.
Oh, that is so good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on the flip side, what is a destination that you feel like is overrated, that everybody wants to go to, and when they get there, they're kind of like, oh, it was just okay?
I mean, like I said, everything has its purpose. And I mean, I think Mexico is a big one just because it's affordable. It's easy to get to. It's so popular, and it's just right now with being post-COVID, they were one of the first ones to reopen to everybody. And I've been seeing pictures of the airport and it's like awful lines up the wazoo. And somebody that I follow on Instagram was like, tell your clients to get to the airport like 4 hours early because I am going to miss my flight. And she was there 3 hours early. So, and it's just like insane because all the paperwork, like, you have to take a COVID test to get back to the States right now. Like no matter where you go, unless it is a US territory, you have to take a COVID test. So they're having to manually check most of those forms to make sure you can get on that plane. And it's just taking so long. They really need to figure out a better way of moderating all of that. But it's taking so long because it is so easy to get to. It's affordable. So everybody can take their families there without breaking the bank. So like I said, it has its purpose. It has a great purpose. I'm going in October, so I can't really smash it all that much. But I just think that if I had to pick one, that's probably the one that I would pick.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that. I feel like everybody goes there, and if you get caught in a busy time, I've definitely been to Mexico where it's like you walk into the airport and you're like, oh my gosh, this line will never move. We're going to be here for 2 hours. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
We're going in February, so fingers crossed. It's probably going to be busy as heck because it's winter, but I mean,
it'll be fun.
I'm excited. So
it's gonna be fine. And hopefully, it's just so fluid. It's like even some of the resorts that have been like rave reviews pre-COVID, you're seeing like really dumpy reviews about. And it's just like everybody's like short-staffed, overworked. Like there's so many, like the influx of people went from 0 to way too many, way too fast. And so it's going to take a while to feel normal again, but I'm really hopeful that 2022 is the year. So we'll see.
Yeah, things got to get better. They have to.
They can't get much worse.
So I always hear that there's like 1 or 2 days out of the week that are the best days to book a flight because it's typically cheaper, and it's probably a myth, but is there a day? Like, is it a Monday? Is it a Wednesday?
I've had that question asked so many times. And even before I was a travel agent, like I jumped on that bandwagon too. I'm like, oh, it's Tuesdays. Oh, no. That blog said it was Wednesdays. I think it's crap. I don't know. I just feel like I have had clients' flights change overnight, and I've had ones that like stay the same for 3 weeks. So I honestly don't know. I don't know if there's a secret. They haven't filled me in on it if there is, but I haven't noticed like a specific day. I've even had people like write me emails like, well, I heard that at 7 a.m. or like, specific times on days. And I'm like, set your alarm and go for it, girl. Cause I don't think that's true.
That is good to know because I totally am doing that. Like with the flights that I'm looking at right now, I'm like, oh, don't worry. Don't look at those prices. It's a Sunday night. Everybody's looking, but it never
really
seems
change.
to add up.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, if you do have flights you're watching, like a really great tip is if you use like Kayak or something like that, they do have those price watchers. And so if you have specific dates, like, right, I've been watching flights for a client to go to Hawaii for, I think, 6 months because they were supposed to go during COVID and then they had to cancel and then they got pregnant. And so they're like, we're going to wait till after the baby and then we're going to go in January. So I've been watching those flights for at least 6 months because they will not go down. But that is a good way to just like reminds you, like, because sometimes you forget, like you get busy, life gets busy and you just forget like, oh crap, I haven't bought those tickets yet. And something, I'm my worst client. I am my absolute worst client because we'll get like, I'm not kidding. I was talking to my mom the other day because we're going to Mexico together. And I was like, oh, I haven't booked our transfers yet. I would never do that for anybody else, but I'm so busy with theirs that I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like if I have to get there and take a cab, I will, because I don't care, like I'll figure it out.
That's hilarious. I totally get, I feel like everyone does that within their work. They're like, client first, me, don't worry about it.
100%. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, so one other thing that I want to touch on is where do you think is the best place? I mean, you mentioned Kayak. What are some other good resources that either you use or I even think of like, I know we both follow like influencers, like travel influencers. Are there different resources that inspire you or get you just excited for new ideas for new travel?
Yeah. So during COVID, I actually started like following random like hotels that I would never think of following. And so I have fallen in love with this place in Tuscany. And I told my husband, so it's our 10-year anniversary in June. And I'm like, we're going like We're going to wake up to that view. Okay. So I've started following like random hotels because I want to remember them. So when I do get because they're not the right fit for everybody. And let's be honest, luxury travel is not in everybody's budget. So sometimes you see those pictures on Instagram and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go there. And then you're like, oh, it's $800 a night. Maybe I don't, but it's still fun to follow. But one of the influencers that I used to follow a lot, I will be honest, I don't have time to follow influencers. I wish that I did, but it just seems like when I'm on Instagram, I'm either like trying to manage my social media or I'm trying to like engage with clients or future clients or past clients. I mean, you go to my personal Instagram and I post like once every 4 months. Like I barely am even on it because I don't have time to do both. But I do love, there's this gal called the Blonde Abroad. And
I love her.
Yeah. So I followed her for a really long time, like before I kind of started this gig. And I did follow her for a while afterwards too. But then I don't know, like I said, life just gets kind of busy, but I've always really liked her content and she has really good tips. And she even shows you like things that she packs and like fun things like that, like where she got all of her stuff. And I don't know, like I said, I'm the kind of person that's like, crap, I leave for vacation in a week and I haven't started packing. I haven't bought anything new. Like I wore this in high school, but I'm going to throw it in anyway. Like I am awful. Like half the fun of going on vacation is buying new clothes. And I'm like, yes, I got one dress before I left. I'm not kidding. I had a pair of wedges break in Jamaica in June. And I was like, well, I've had them for like 7 years. So I'll just leave them here.
That's their time.
I'll probably just toss
They had a
them.
good last run.
Yeah, they've done me well. They traveled through Europe with me. So
That's a really great recommendation. So I actually found her over the winter. My boyfriend and I were booking a trip to Switzerland and Greece and both. And then COVID happened. Thanks a lot. So we pulled out and just haven't really revisited again, but we got our money back anyway. And I found her and she is amazing. And that was really what piqued my interest even to go, because I'm like, okay, this looks incredible.
Yes.
So okay, that's really cool. We have to link that.
I feel like I need to follow her. I've not heard of her. I just get sucked into the YouTube videos. Like I'll literally
I should send you the name of one that I just kind of stumbled upon too. I think they're called like, I think it's Tim and Finn. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they do a lot of like the YouTube videos. If you get sucked into that stuff, I just saw them. They went to Iceland and somebody like posted, like tagged them in an Instagram video that was like, I just watched like 12 consecutive hours of Tim. And they're like, oh my gosh, we would not wish that on anyone.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But they do make great videos. And like, I don't know. I think the thing I want to say about influencers though, is that it's not always real life. And I just like, you don't see the hours and the days that they put in to like 5 photos or like a 20-minute clip. And like, that is not experiencing things the way that most normal people can, because you don't have a month to check out like Northern Italy. You have 2 weeks to check out the entire country and maybe Greece on the side. So it's just like, I just want to put that out there. And that took me a while to figure out, is that it's not always realistic. And it's important to just pick a handful of the things and know that you're not going to be able to get every perfect Instagram photo at 37 different spots.
I'm really glad you said that.
Great advice. Cause it is so easy to be like, oh man, she went to this place and like got to see A, B, C, and D. Let's do that same thing. And then you don't realize, oh yeah, she spent literally 3 months there. That's why that happened.
Like, be present. Like, you are on that trip with somebody that you love. Like, you don't need to take 3,000 selfies so that you can post them on Instagram, because those don't matter. Like, make the memories, eat the food, see the things, like do it all instead of worrying about the stupid Instagram photo. Like, if you can get those on the side, like, always a perk. Like, always a perk. Like, get yourself a man that knows how to take a good Instagram photo, okay?
I really love that you say that though, because I do think I actually saw this meme on Instagram the other day. It was somebody taking a picture of the sunset, and basically it said that picture doesn't look as pretty as it does in real life. So next time you're taking a picture, remember that, you know, like be in the moment and
soak it in.
Take your picture, take your video, put the phone down and enjoy it. Like, I mean, and it's hard for me to even say that because it's hard to practice what I preach, because like so much of my business is like wanting to show people like what you see. And like, I don't know, it's like, you want to paint a picture for them. You want them to see like, why would I want to go here? Or why would I want to go there? And so a huge part of my business is that, but like, I have to be really careful. And like, it makes my husband really angry too. Like one day he's like, can you just leave your phone in the room today? And I was like, no.
Probably not.
This is my job. No.
Like, and then as soon as we get down there, so like we were just at Sandals South Coast in Jamaica, and there's a peacock on property, and I had been trying to find that stinking thing all week. And I was like, if I would have left my phone in the room, I wouldn't have gotten the picture of the peacock.
Been waiting all week for this thing.
It's finally here.
Exactly.
That would be so difficult because you're on these amazing trips, but in the back of your head, you're like, oh, this is a great, social photo or photo to send to a client that was interested in going here. So how do you separate that kind of, I mean, in a sense, work-life balance? Because I'm sure you vacation some for research, but also because you need a vacation. So how do you separate those?
It's still a bit of a work in progress, if I'm being honest. I think it got to the point where like my husband and I were like, you could just feel the tension in the air. And I know I hate to even say that it got that bad, because I worked so much and he works so much, but it's not in the house. And so he's out all day during the summer. Like as long as the sun is shining, he is outside. And right now the days are long. So I honestly, when we went to Jamaica in June, it was for my 30th birthday and our 9-year anniversary, all within a couple of days. So we went for both. And I think I had seen him maybe a total of 10 hours the week before. And that's like not including sleeping, but it's like because I'd be sleeping when he'd come in, or like he'd be up and gone before I'd be awake. So like we barely see each other. And so it got to the point where like when he would come in, I'm like, oh, I just gotta get one more proposal out, or I'm just gonna get one more proposal out, or I gotta quick make this payment really fast because they didn't send me their credit card information until 5:55 or whatever. And I had to draw the line. And it took a lot of like hard lessons for me to figure out that there needs to be a line. And I let it flow. I'm like, I work from home. I can work at 10, like, that's fine. And that's not fine. Like they don't work at home. So why should I? Like they don't come home from work. And I'm flexible. I don't want to say that I'm like a terrible person and I'm like not going to work with your schedule. But if I have people that are like, I really want my husband to be on the call too, could you meet with us at 7? Sure, absolutely. I will call you at 7. But if you're like a stay-at-home mom, like, could you please try to filter that in like during the workday? Or like if we have a deadline and you know that it needs to be paid on Friday, but you're not going to be home until 5 p.m., could you send it Thursday? Like, just give me the day on Friday to do it. So I've had to be like more careful about that, like answering my phone at 8 p.m. on a Friday night when you don't travel for 7 months. Like, if you are on vacation, like the other day we don't see Riley's family very often. His sister lives in Montana. And so she came home and we were all playing cards and like hanging out. And at 10 o'clock, I had a couple missed calls that I didn't see like right away from a client. And she's like, our flight just got canceled. What do I do? And so I had to say goodbye and go to my room. And I was working until midnight that night, getting her on new flights. That is not what I mean. Like, that is why you use me. But I had to draw the line for my family and my children. Like, I got really sick of my kids saying like, oh, I'm pretending to be my mom. And he's like on his fake computer. And I'm like, oh, do you remember me? Or I'm working right now. Like, that's a phrase I hear from him sometimes. I'm working right now. So I've been trying to say yes to him more often. Like, yes, let's go outside. I can take a 20-minute break, or I can grab my computer and work on the porch while you're playing outside, or something like that. I've been trying to be better about that, but it has been a big struggle. And I think you have to find that balance. And so like I would tell my husband, I'm not going to leave my phone in the room, but it will be in my beach bag until I need it. Like, I'm not going to be sitting on it, so I feel like there's compromise, and he realizes that it is a big part of my job. And so he's been really good about that. And he got the new iPhone. So he's like, I'll take all the photos.
Well, props to you for balancing all that. Cause that is one thing that, I mean, I think we constantly hear with a lot of the women that we talk to, when you're doing something that you love, a lot of times it takes up almost even more of your life than that, 9 to 5. But you're doing it because you love it, and finding that balance, I can not even imagine how difficult it is, but it sounds like, I mean, it sounds like you're making it work and you're doing
We're getting there. Like I said, it's a big learning experience. I actually just decided this year that I hired a virtual assistant a couple of weeks ago to take those like things that I still love to do them, like building itineraries. Like I'm still the one that's going to send it to you, go over it, tweak it, make it perfect. But there's somebody else that can like pop in like the information about the hotel or the destination or whatever. And so I'm just I'm a really type A person, and I'm a control freak. I will be honest. I'm a control freak. It's very hard for me to give things to other people and to delegate. And so it's forcing me to be better at that.
That's
Hey, that's a
amazing.
good thing. Yeah.
Love it.
So we have a really fun game, and I think you probably saw it, but we're so excited. We always try to do this with our guests, just something fun, easy at the end. And so we're going to ask you a series of questions and just answer it however you feel. If it's a couple sentences, a couple words, whatever that may be.
Yes. So what we want to emulate is you are planning a trip for Paige and I. And so you're telling us all the things that we're doing, starting with, where are we going? Where would you put Paige and I on a trip, Joe? Knowing the little bit that you do.
We're going to Italy.
Yes, ma'am, we are. We're going to Italy. Where in Italy do we go?
Yes, where?
So we are going to start with northern Italy because it is a very underrated portion of Italy, and it is in the mountains, and it is gorgeous, and it is beautiful. And I only got like a half of a day at Lake Como, and that's a whole different story. And you can ask my sister-in-law about that. And I'm going back to northern Italy because it is just like amazing. It's like, honestly, it feels like Switzerland, even though it's not Switzerland. We're going to start in northern Italy, and we're going to stay in like kind of like a bed and breakfast type thing where you can like hear the cowbells off in the distance. And like the breakfast that we had, they totally made that with the things that they grow or that they raise. And then we're going to hop in our car and we're going to drive down to Tuscany. We're going to stay in that awesome place that I found during COVID where you wake up and you like see the vineyard, you see the sun rising over like all of this pretty stuff. And there's a pool. There's a really nice pool.
Yes.
Wine and maybe some really good cheese. And we're going to just hang out there for a couple of days. And then maybe we'll mosey down towards Rome. I feel like a good trip to, if you've never been to Italy, you got to check off some of those things, right? So we're going to do like the Colosseum and, you know, those, maybe the Vatican, if that's your jam, things like that. And then maybe we'll polish it off with a few nights on the beach in Positano.
Okay,
You literally, I'm not even trying to like pump your tires here. You just planned a trip that like me and my husband literally talked about last week. Like that is verbatim exactly what we want to do. But I guess I'm taking it now.
Yeah, so Tyler, sorry you can't come. It's a girls trip.
Yeah.
You can come too.
Yeah, perfect. I'll come.
Okay, so we're going to see amazing things. I'm so excited, but the real question, what are we wearing?
You know me, I'm wearing what I wore in high school because I don't have time to freaking shop.
Broken wedges.
Yeah, my broken wedges. So we're definitely going to need a few cute sundresses because what's a winery visit without a cute sundress? Gotta bring some tennis shoes or some good comfortable walking shoes. That's something that I feel like people forget. And if you can, we're gonna shove all of that in like a hiking backpack and you're not bringing any luggage.
Oh,
Problem.
that took a turn.
That is where we have a problem. So when I went to Italy with my sister-in-law, they are like way big overpackers. And I will be the first to admit that I am the farthest thing from a girly girl. And she kind of is. So that's probably part of the difficult part for her. She's like, okay, my luggage is at 49 pounds. I was like, take some stuff out. And she's like, no, I have things to throw away along the way. And I'm like, your sample moisturizer is not going to make a difference. Like you're going to buy things, throw it out. So guess who was trying to stuff things in my backpack all trip? Like, so, but it's like cobblestone streets, stairs, like things you don't think about. So I had my backpack on, granted it was like as tall as my head all the way down to like my butt. So it was huge. And I had that thing shoved with packing cubes. So it was very organized. But it was a lifesaver because she's trying to take a 50-pound rolly wheel bag up a flight of stairs in narrow street, Cheyenne, and I'm just like trucking up the hill, you know, like no big deal. So that's just something to consider is when you pick where you're staying, as long as it's something that is like, you're going to get dropped off like right at the door, fine. But if you stay in like these cute little places that are really hard to get to and the taxi has to like park 2 blocks away, just think about that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that because I 1000% would have bought like 2 suitcases filled to the brim. Okay, which brings me to my next question because you already kind of answered it with that. But what are some things that we need to pack that we wouldn't think about?
So some of the things that I like to pack in like my carry-on, because especially when you're traveling over the pond, you're sleeping and like you have like makeup and like bad breath and things like that. So one of the things, like I love taking those little teeny Colgate like toothbrush things.
Yes.
You like pop the thing because sometimes you get into the airport and you're like, oh, like this is not good. And so you just a little fresher, you know, got to get your hand sanitizer these days. And like, or the wipes, like even pre-COVID, I was always a little bit weird about like the trays because like you eat on that and people like put their head on it and sleep on it. So I don't know. I like to wipe my space down and then I feel like it's my space. Compression socks. Like I have really bad circulation in my feet. And when you're up in the air for that long, like my 1 foot like fills up like a balloon. So by the time I get there, I'm like miserable. But if you wear compression socks, for number one, it's freaking cold on the plane. And so it keeps you warmer and it helps with circulation. So I always tuck a pair of compression socks in my purse when I get on the plane for a long flight.
Would never think of that.
Yeah. Well, that's a really
that
good
was
idea.
genius.
Yeah. So how are we going to get there and how are we getting from place to place?
So I think, well, we're obviously going to have to fly unless you guys want to take a real long time and sail. We're going to have to fly. And then once we get there, we're probably going to do a combination of mostly rail because European countries know how to do it. Like I wish that we had a better rail system in the US because it's efficient, it's fast, and it takes all of the stress off of your shoulders because you get to sit back and enjoy the view. But sometimes you travel to like more difficult places to get to that maybe there's not like a major rail station in that city. So we might rent a car for a couple of days, but most of it's going to be rail.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Love that.
Okay. Those all sound great.
Yeah.
Okay. You already talked about some of the activities we did. So I'm loving those. How long will we stay in order to touch all of that?
So we probably will be there for about 10 days.
Oh, that's perfect.
Gosh, I'm like blown away by this.
I know.
Literally, like I'm gonna be emailing you after this because I need you to make an itinerary for me and get this all situated because I'm doing this trip.
Yeah, well, and Italy's been on the brain because I have had so many people asking about Italy. So we've been in full blown Italy planning mode lately. So I love it though. Italy's probably one of my favorite to plan. I just love it. I think it's because of the food. My way through the country for a year.
Yes, the pizza, pasta, all
wine.
Of it.
I don't think I ate pizza in the US for a year when I got back because I just knew it was going to be a letdown.
The same.
I think I'll take that risk. I think I will take the risk of eating really great pizza and not eating pizza for a year after that.
I made it at home a few times to try to get as close to the real deal as I could, and it was okay. It's just not the same. You gotta find yourself in a restaurant at least one time where nobody speaks English, and they give you an Italian menu, and then they look at you and they like your eyeballs pop out of your head like I can't read this, and then they're like, oh, Americans.
Oh, sorry. Hang on.
Gotta find a hole in the wall for at least one meal because they're the best. Oh, a little tip. If you're traveling abroad, a question to ask the locals instead of saying like, where should I eat tonight? They're going to tell you like where the tourists want to eat tonight. Say, what's your favorite place to eat?
Oh, so simple.
Yeah.
That's such good work.
Take the time to walk like 1 or 2 blocks off of like the main drag because number one, the prices are better. And number two, it's just more authentic because it's not so like touristy. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. You always find those gems just a few blocks off of the main drag.
Oh my gosh.
That's great advice. I'm so excited for you to
have
plan it.
loved every second of this. Like,
It's been
I'm
so
so
fun.
excited I'm probably gonna re-listen to all of this and actually like take notes because I feel like I need to retain this information. But tell everyone where they can find you, how they can get in contact with you to plan their next trip.
So I am on all social media platforms, or you can go to my website, which is probably the easiest to remember. It's just alltravelmatters with an S.com, alltravelmatters.com. My Instagram is also at alltravelmatters, Facebook, All Travel Matters. You know, it's pretty simple. And yeah, there should be like, I think on my Instagram, it has a link straight to the start planning portion. And you can find all that information on my website too, if you're not sure where to find it.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. We'll link everything and we can't wait to promote you, support you, and all of that. So
thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Yes, we need to have you back.
We need to go to Italy together.
I think we do. I think we do. We're gonna talk after this, and we're gonna get some stuff in the works here because now my mind is turning. So we will be in touch. Thank you so much. We will talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.